All right, so the equation that we have here is an ellipse that we need to graph. So when we're finding and graphing an ellipse, there's things that we need to find. We need to find the center. You are going to have to list the foci and the vertices, both major and minor. All right, so to go through and start with this, we'll start with the center. The center is given by H and K here. We just have to go ahead and change those signs. So the center of this ellipse will be at 3, -5. Now, because the larger value in the denominator is 16, this tells me that my major axis is the x value. And because of that, a is equal to whatever the square root of that number underneath that is, which is 16. So a in this case is equal to 4. Now, the minor axis, or the smaller axis, is underneath the y value. That is going to be my b. The square root of 4 is 2. So I have a, b, and now we need to find c. The way we find c in an ellipse, c squared is equal to the larger of the two axes squared minus the smaller. So that is going to be 4 squared minus 2 squared, or 16 minus 4, or 12. So c is equal to the square root of 12. Reducing the 12, that's 4 times 3, or 2 square root of 3. So I have my Pythagorean relationship between everything. I have a, b, and c. Now we just have to go through and find all of these points. All right, so let's go back and talk about what I mean by the major axis being the x-axis. That means that my ellipse is going to have the longest side of the ellipse will be in the horizontal direction. Now, because it's in a horizontal direction, all the points on this line, all the y values stay the same. So what's moving and what's changing is the x values. So let's go through and rewrite this. We're going to find the foci and the major vertices of my ellipse. And remember, what I'm going to do is add or subtract to those x values. So when we're finding the values for the foci here, there's a couple things we have to remember. First, because this is a horizontal, what is changing is the x value changes in the center. And the other thing we have to remember is what changes it by? It changes by c. And we found before that c was equal to 2 square root of 3. So how does this happen? My y value stays the same, and it becomes 3 plus 2 squared of 3 minus 5 for my first focal point, and the next one will be 3 minus 2 square root of 3. That y value of the center stays the same at -5. We do the same thing for the vertices. Again, y stays the same, but the vertices change around a. So my a value in this case was a was equal to 4. So for the major vertices, what you end up getting, you have 3 plus 4, comma -5, or 7, -5 for the first one. And then the second one would be 3 minus 4, -5, or that would be -1, -5. So I have the major vertices, I have the foci. The last thing I need to do is find the minor. Now the minor, we have a different piece here because underneath the minor, the y changes from the center, but x stays the same. So what I have for the minor vertices, x in both cases is going to be 3. And my y was -5. Now the minor axis changes over b, and we found b to equal 2. So that's just going to be -5 plus 2 for the first one, and the other one would be -5 minus 2. So those final points would be 3, -3, and then 3, -7. Now I want to take all of this information and graph the ellipse. I'm going to go ahead and copy over some of this information to the other slide, and then we'll start from there. So before I start graphing all of this, I need to find a decimal approximation to these two foci, because we can't really graph 3 plus 2 squared of 3 very well. So if I turn this into a decimal, that is going to give me approximately 6.5. And down here, this value is going to give me -0.5. We need those decimals to go ahead and graph this. So let's start at our center at 3, -5, which will be right here. And then our major vertices will be 7, -5, and -1, -5. See, along this line, this is our major axis. All of those y values stay the same, and the only thing that changes is x. Now, let's also go ahead and plot the foci with those. Our foci is going to be about here and right about here. Now those foci don't get included in the graph. Only thing we have left to go ahead and plot is our minor vertices, which is going to be at 3, -3. And notice those are right above and below the center. And 3, -7. And then I will go through and graph this and draw my ellipse.